Hello everyone, and welcome back to the farm. Can you all smell that? It's not me. Well, no, definitely not me. I'm unusually pleasant today. That is the smell of harvest being right around the corner. I've heard some local coffee shop chatter that there are some combines running around the area. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Harvest is extremely close though. Close enough that these 3-9 beans are starting to lose a little bit of color. With fall rapidly approaching, we do have a lot of equipment to get ready still. Today we are going to address all of that other additional equipment that has not been looked over yet. It will be the most exciting equipment shuffle of the year. It can be a little frustrating to participate in, but you guys have the best seat in the house for all the action. Before we get too far along, make sure you smash that like button and leave a comment down below. I appreciate all of your interaction and feedback. Thank you all for continuously supporting the channel. I don't quite think that our augers that are stored in this barn really understand how good of a life they have, completely protected from the elements, while all of their counterparts and ancestors are out here in the auger graveyard. I make sure and warn those augers if they act up, we'll park them out here, unhook them, and just buy a new one. I mentioned all the problems and shortfalls with new equipment being delivered. We're not going to have that issue. Our combine is sitting in at John Deere. We're waiting on a new corn head to be set up. There's no reason to make 2 trips. We'll bring them both out at the same time. Now our new tractor is actually here on the farm somewhere. It's top secret though. Happens to be in that machine shed right there at Dad's house. I guess that's where all the special equipment gets parked. I've had enough of this low tire on this cart. I'm gonna put some air in it. Bought this thing for $100. It's actually pretty sweet. I don't think it's really practical for like a large tractor tire. For an application like this though, you can't ask for much more. Always remember where you put the valve stem cap. Okay, right there. Screw that on. It's got 9 PSI right now, so that's very low. I don't even know what the running pressure of this tire is. If I dial it up here on the right side, wherever I want to go to, if I can get it to spin with one finger, there we go. Okay, well that says 110 PSI, so we are way off. I don't know if I'm going to have enough battery here to do this all. That's the only shortfall. It can do a lot of pressure, and it can air up a nice tire like this, but we don't have big enough batteries on here, and it's not very time efficient to use this. I'm going to put 50 pounds in for now. Hit go. I can walk away. That way if it blows, it's not my problem. I hope that everyone who went to the Farm Progress Show had a blast. I went yesterday, which was Tuesday. Today's Wednesday, and I was amazed at all the equipment and technology that was there. I've never been to the Farm Progress Show, believe it or not. It's only 40 minutes away from me in Decatur. It's just crazy, all the cool stuff there. It's also a very bad place for you to be financially if you're a fan of John Deere equipment. They had an X9 1100 with a 50-foot hinged flex draper. Whew, that'd be nice. The Puppet Master has arrived. Time to take some orders. 1 deer, 2 deer, 3 deer, 4. I was never a rich man, but now I am poor. Jeff is frantically mowing here south of the 48-foot bend in this patch. That's normally where we back those augers into, and you don't really get a mow once they're there. The real beauty of our equipment parking strategy is that there's actually no strategy at all. We just kind of find open space, park the tractor. You really couldn't ask for a better day to work outside. It's not like the 95 degrees and muggy we've had over the last few weeks. It's about 75 with a nice breeze. Feels like vacation, but I'm at work. What kind of trickery is this? The hitch needs to go that way. All right, 5th time's a charm. You're hitting on the base of it now. Now here's the fun part. There's somewhat of an art to putting these in and taking them out.
Go out! Up! Now go out! Whoa, too much! Now go out! Clear!
As I'm sure you could imagine, a 74-foot auger in a 120-foot long barn takes up quite a bit of space and is a little bit cumbersome to get out. Looks like he's going to go right through the wet hole. A typical Marty move. Come back a little bit. You're free. He's like a little speed demon. The first one was kind of a warm-up. This one's a little more difficult. It's backed up against the barn, so we're gonna have to drag it by the axles away from it. Whoa! Whoa, back up! Stop moving!
You told me to back up!
You pulled up!
I didn't. I took my foot off the brake.
What you can't see when I'm looking at it from above is this hitch is actually angled upwards, which is what makes it so difficult to get in the hammer strap here. We also don't have much room to work with here to the west. So I'm going to spot on that. Storage block. You don't really need to be an expert in trigonometry to understand that that term is not going to work. This is why we recruited the loader tech. This is the steerable axle option. That's how you move it over about 6 feet. When a chain is put to use inside of the barn, there's always something very interesting going on. I know that a lot doesn't get by most of you viewers here on this channel, and a lot of you asked the same question last fall. We're getting these big augers out. Why did we use the side door when we have a door on the north end of the barn? That's a very great question, and I'm going to explain it to you right now. Very simple answer. Because those north doors are virtually useless right now. We've got two nice, beautiful, rustic harvest doors on the north side of this barn door. To quote my dad, when we built this barn 7 to 8 years ago, he said that someday you're really going to want to use these north doors, but I'm not paying to take down those harvest doors. That's going to be my problem. Okay, we're free. Oh, it's got some torque on it. There you have it. 150 combined feet of 13-inch auger. Those are capable of moving a tremendous amount of grain. Let's get geared up to service these. Unhook the safety stops on our swing away pits. A lot of grease zerks, and none of them are friendly. I can tell you that without even looking. They always tend to need some encouragement. Come on, you rascal. There we go. I don't know that I've ever met anyone who enjoys operating the crank. Huh. That one's wire tied. Never would have guessed that. Baling wire is always a tetanus shot waiting to happen. My absolute favorite part about taking those augers out is how much space it frees up in our barn. Those essentially shut off about a quarter of our storage area just because we want to keep them inside and keep them fresh. For those of you who don't know, storing an auger inside is certainly a luxury. They know how to rust very quickly. They do it much slower inside. There's so much more room for activities now. Sure, they could have designed these better. Only took 100 tries, but I did in fact free the swing away pit, so we can work on that too. That looks satisfactory. The only question is, where did I put the valve stem cap? Nope. There it is. Sometimes you find them in 5 seconds. Other times you don't ever find them again for the rest of your life. Don't worry, old pal. Your mate is just up the road. Won't be long and this thing will be running 12 plus inches in the ground. Maybe 10 miles an hour? Just kidding. If we got 5, I'd be impressed. Maybe disregard what I just said. We've had over 5 inches of rain the last week. If we continue on this wet pattern, there won't be much fall tillage done. I'm hoping it stays dry. We can hammer out harvest quick. You never know what kind of cards Mother Nature is going to deal us. We've had really good conditions the last 2 falls to get a lot of work done. This fall could be a completely different case though. A harvest and tillage season from hell? I sure hope not, but anything's possible. This tractor is going to get its own video, but here's a sneak peek. So for those of you wondering, it is in fact a deer, which you shouldn't have expected any less. It is an absolute beast though. You guys are gonna love this tractor. So grabbing the fun pump out of the back of my truck and then realized that I completely forgot to put the battery back in. Can't have fun if you don't have power. So I'm gonna go get that. This is what happens when you take a one-day vacation and go to Farm Progress Show and oodle over new equipment. You forget how to do your work the right way. Also, big shout out to Kyle Dean at Oski Creative here in Mattoon for putting a new decal on our semi. We've owned this truck here with the drug dealer tint windows for probably 6 years now. It's notoriously a problem child. I'm sure anyone who's watched my videos knows that. But we hadn't put a logo on it, and I figured, well, if we were just going to admit that this is ours, we should at least have our logo on it. Looks crisp, looks clean. Thanks, Kyle. Okay, now we can get back to work. Lesson learned, everyone. Pay attention, grab your batteries. This project may take me a short while between finding all the grease zerts and putting grease in them, especially the ones that won't take. It could be quite the process. For those of you who are unacquainted with grease, which is in this tube right here, is extremely messy, one, and two, it serves to lubricate any metal on metal area within any kind of implement. For instance, this shaft here that sits in this metal hanger, that's metal on metal, it has a grease zert on top. We add grease at certain intervals. It could be a day, it could be a month, just depends on how hard you run the machine and the specific requirements of that individual part. As you could imagine, there are a lot of moving parts here on the auger. Spins up, falls down, spins up, all the way. So there's a lot of grease zerts. A quick little metaphor for those of you who really are struggling to wrap your head around this process or just aren't that familiar with agriculture or other heavy equipment industries. Imagine you're at a water park going down a water slide. You almost certainly want water on that slide as you go down, or it's not going to be very fun. All of that friction creates wear. In the instance of your skin rubbing against the water slide, assuming you even move, you're going to have some burns on you. No one would like that. That's why you have the water running. Well, in the instance of metal on metal with the heavy machinery that we deal with, we utilize this polyurea grease. It's John Deere, so it's got to be great, but it's specifically designed to reduce the wear of these parts, make them last longer. If it runs out of grease, one, it's going to be extremely loud. Hearing metal on metal is almost like nails on a chalkboard, and two, you could break something, wear something out much quicker than you have to. A couple dollar tube of grease can save you from buying very expensive parts. Unless I missed some spots on these augers, which is not unlikely, I actually had a lot of success. There's only one zert on both of them that I could not get to take, or I couldn't get it lined up without turning the screw, and it was that little guy right there. This auger's too big for me to turn by hand. It's blocking it just enough that I can't get square with it. So we are like 99% done greasing these. I just need to check the gearboxes. I don't know if I'm going to do that today or not. And I didn't come out unscathed. Greasing was as dirty as expected, but that's why I have the shirt. I seem to have made a terrible mistake, so there's no way I'm checking those gearboxes today. I cleaned my truck out to take it to Farm Progress Show, make some room in the back for some buddies, and I took my toolbox out, and I don't have a hammer to hit up those lids, nor do I have any Allen wrenches to take the plugs out to check the oil level. So we're gonna have to do that another day. Augers are typically a very underwhelming part of a farmer's lineup in terms of equipment. I love these augers though. If I recall correctly, we bought these two at separate times. I'd say they're 5 to 6 years old, and they were quite the upgrade. These are 13-inch augers. That means that the diameter of the flighting is 13 inches. A small measurement when you pull out a tape measure, a very large measurement when you consider the amount of grain it can move. These 74-foot long augers have no problem hitting our 48-foot grain bin, which in reality is not that tall. And they can also move 11,000 bushels per hour up and out. That is an impressive amount of grain. Folks, that is over 100 bushels per minute. These augers right here can empty an entire semi-truck in less than 6 minutes. That is lightning fast, especially compared to the old worn out 10-inch diameter augers we used before. Now they do make 16-inch augers. They require a very high horsepower tractor to spin. We can't really justify them, but that would empty a truck even faster. Adding 3 inches to diameter, I would presume, would almost double the capacity. That would probably empty a truck in just a couple of minutes. Don't get me wrong, we were always in a hurry here on the farm come harvest, but we're not in that much of a hurry. It's not quite the same as the good old days when an old 30 horsepower tractor could load a bin. We move a lot more grain than that nowadays here in the Corn Belt. While we're on the topic of moving grain in the fall, this is the perfect opportunity for me to answer a very common question I get, and that is, why do we have the type of grain storage we have? That is a lot of small to medium-sized bins in a variety of different locations, versus some operations you see that have almost elevator-type storage with large drying capacity. There are a handful of different factors that influence that decision. Now, the main thing to keep in mind here is that a lot of our grain storage is over 40 to 50 years old. It has been around a very long time, with the exception of 2 or 3 bins. If you hop in a time machine and zip back to that era of farming, keep in mind what the logistics were back then. We did not have the capacity to move such large quantities of grain large distances. Very few farms had semis. We relied on 10-wheelers and straight trucks, if not wagons. On top of that, we did not produce near the quantity of grain per acre that we do nowadays. Having medium-sized bins located directly next to farms was a godsend for harvesting. You didn't have to take your grain far. You could store a majority of that farm, if not all of it. It was easy street. Not to mention, come harvest time, there was no waiting in the line at the elevator. That is still an issue today. And when October hits and every single person in the country is picking corn, you can bet that the elevators will back up. Once you're 50th in line there, you'll really think about spending the money to put up a grain bin on your farm. If all of your grain movement equipment is stuck at the elevator, that is going to kneecap your harvesting capacity. Most of these large on-farm grain facilities you see were probably built within the last 10 to 20 years. Farms have gotten significantly larger in that time frame, and crop yields have skyrocketed. As you could probably imagine, bigger grain bins should be more efficient financially. That isn't always the case. More often than not, though, the more bushels you add, the less your dollar per bushel cost is. That makes your storage more efficient. Then most of these operations tack on almost commercial drying capacity. It's cheaper than taking it to the elevator, and we have to keep up with modern combines. Big farms need to start harvesting early. That's why they need dryers. That's why they need big bins to store it all. We haven't had any grain facilities in the last 10 years or so. We really haven't had much of a need. We can actually store a large portion of our crop. We do take a handful to the elevator, but we like the convenience of having our own elevator here at home. There are actually some instances and opportunities where you don't even need a drying system. Some larger processors like ADM and Decatur will pay a premium for early corn. Right at the tip of harvest where we are right now, grain supply is at an all-time low. Elevators have typically emptied out their long-term storage, and these big corn-hungry processors are looking for grain. And they will usually take high-moisture corn with little penalty. There is always a cost and dockage associated with picking high-moisture corn. I'm talking 25 to 30%. Usually you have to pay to dry it down, and also have shrink, which is the calculation that reduces the wet bushels down to dry bushels. You lose total yield on that, and you have to pay to dry it down at a premium. A large number of producers will pick corn that is still this green and high in moisture just to capture that early premium. Some of them even take it a step further and plant shorter season corn than normal. That way it dries and matures earlier. They don't have to wait for it to dry in the field, and they can capture a very substantial premium, get acres out of the ground, start their tillage, start their fertility programs. Although there is a lot of incentive to do it, our operation has never been that aggressive with programs like that. I do see why it fits into a lot of budgets though. To give you an idea of the progress of our corn, I pulled 2 ears from a field that I actually yield checked in a video previously. It is a 114-day corn planted the 5th of April, so it should be pretty far along. According to GDUs alone, or growing degree units, we should have hit physiological maturity or black layer about 10 days ago. We'll check and see for ourselves. Other than just feeling the general moisture of the ear, you really can't tell a whole lot by looking at the outside. You always have to break it open. I split both of our ears in half, and much to my surprise, our corn has actually not black layered yet. Black layer, or the stage of physiological maturity, R6, is when corn is completely done growing and no longer susceptible to any kind of damage from frost, disease, anything of that sort. Slight disclaimer, it is not protected from Mother Nature. If a tornado landed down here, took the corn out, hailstorm, locust attack, fireball, meteor, anything like that, R6 isn't going to save you. But in terms of an early frost or late disease pressure, we really can't lose much yield. As the name implies, black layer is the stage at which the bottom of the kernel develops a black layer. This layer will be easily visible here at the tip. It's not developed yet. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it just goes to show you that our metrics aren't entirely accurate. The easiest way to see how far out from black layer you are is to look at your milk line. The milk line is the milky part of the kernel on the back side. You can see that we only have maybe 10% of milk left to go. Once that's gone, you will be at R6. We're not quite there yet. This corn looks fantastic. Depending on the characteristics of the hybrid, your moisture at black layer could be anywhere from 25% to 40%. You really don't know what you're going to have, and that is one risk associated with contracting grain for this very early harvest premium. Remember, they're not going to take anything over 28%. I would imagine if we tried to pick this, they probably wouldn't take it. I don't have a moisture meter here, or we don't have one on the farm, so I can't tell you specifically what the moisture's at. If I had to pinpoint it, I'd say it's around 35 plus. Not only are they not going to want that high of moisture corn, unless you're running an X9 combine or a big Lexion, you're going to have a hell of a time picking that high moisture of a corn. It's going to be like harvesting water. Dry corn is incredibly easy to run through the combine. Wet corn is a struggle for even the biggest of machines. Given the maturity of that corn, it may seem like harvest is way in the future, and for that cornfield, probably. But we typically do not pick corn first. In our operation, a lot of times we cut all of our beans before we even pick 1 acre of corn. We like dry corn, and unless we're offered one heck of a deal, we're not going to go out there and pick anything over 18%. I know that some people may disagree with that management strategy, but hey, different strokes for different folks. Everyone can take a deep breath and relax, because we're going to have some 3-1 beans planted the 5th of April that we'll probably cut here in the next 2 weeks. These beans started to turn or reach their physiological maturity probably 3 to 4 days ago. Our standard metric from first sign of turning to harvest is usually about 3+ weeks. I would say in the next 15 to 16 days, so long as it stays sunny, the weather's cooperative, and we don't get a lot of rain, these beans will cut. And I would imagine that even some of our later season beans planted early would be around the same schedule. I'm very optimistic for soybean harvest. I don't really know where to peg these beans for yield. I'm not going to speculate in this video. I might give it another week or so before I put any numbers on the table. Bean size is tremendous. Those are some giant beans. Big beans, big weight, big harvest, big paycheck. That applies to the boss, not me. It all pays the same to me, 0 bushels, 100 bushels. I am working on my game plan to unionize here though. We're going to turn working conditions around at Dole Farms. Imagine if every bean in your field looked like this. Had 100 pods on it. Yeah, we're just fantastic farmers. That's all there is to it. You wish your beans looked this good. Woo! Talent. Didn't have anything to do with the 40-foot gap right there. Just about a mile to the southeast of the farm we just looked at, here is a 3/8 XtendFlex bean planted the same day as those 3-1s. Since it is a 3/8, it's on the longer side of the 3/8 maturity group. The 3-1 is an earlier season bean, so rightfully this should take longer to mature. It does not even look close to as far along as the 3-1 beans. Maybe in areas there's a tiny bit of maturity starting. This field is at least 3 weeks out, probably 4. It's a longer season bean. We would expect that. And the longer it stays alive, the better. A 3/8 bean that lasts longer should have more yield than a 3/8 that dies early. Last but certainly not least, we have a ton of 3-9 beans planted the 7th of April. I do believe that these are actually starting to mature a little bit. We do have something else though very interesting going on in this field. You can see some different colors. I'm not going to talk about this video because I'm not going to drag any more videos on for 45 minutes. If you have any guesses, drop them down below in the comment. Bonus question. What did our neighbor do right here? I'll give you a hint. It rhymes with schmerbicide. I'm glad we didn't do that, but accidents do happen. I wasn't joking when I said we had a lot of those 3-9 beans. Hundreds of acres of them. All right, everyone, definitely time to call it quits for the day. I have had some requests recently, though, for me to put Lenny in the video, so I'll give you a little update right now. What do you think, Lenny? What do you think, sir? Say something, you're on camera. Smile. We've already got him started on technology. He's got an Apple Watch, or so he thinks. Hey, don't be crazy, man! He's pretty darn cute, isn't he? We've already started training him for the farm, got him some tractors to play with. I think he'll be an expert in no time. Everyone, I really appreciate you tuning in. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and comment down below if you have any questions. You know I love to talk about farming. Have a great day, everyone. Peace!